If you've spent any time looking at health content lately, you've probably heard the word polyphenols thrown around constantly, usually attached to a product, a powder, or a promise that some exotic berry contains more of them than anything else on Earth. Polyphenols are real, and the underlying science is genuinely interesting. But there's a significant gap between what the research actually shows and how these compounds get marketed. Let's close that gap and talk about what polyphenols really do inside your body, based on the actual research, including the parts marketing conveniently leaves out. What polyphenols actually are. Polyphenols are a large family of compounds produced naturally by plants, originally as a kind of defense system, helping plants resist UV radiation, pests, and environmental stress. There isn't just one polyphenol. It's an umbrella term covering thousands of different compounds, grouped into several major categories, including flavonoids, found in berries, tea, onions, and citrus fruits, still beans, including resveratrol, found in grapes and red wine, phenolic acids, found in coffee and whole grains, and lignans, found in flaxseed and whole grains. They're genuinely everywhere in a normal diet. Fruits, vegetables, tea, coffee, whole grains, nuts, and even dark chocolate all contain meaningful amounts. This is part of why polyphenol research is so broad. Researchers aren't studying one obscure compound. They're studying a massive category present throughout ordinary food. The mechanisms, what they actually do at a cellular level. Here's where the real science gets interesting, and it's more nuanced than antioxidants fight free radicals, which is the oversimplified version most marketing sticks to. Direct antioxidant activity. Polyphenols can neutralize reactive oxygen species, unstable molecules produced as a normal byproduct of cellular metabolism that, in excess, can damage cells and DNA over time. Polyphenols do this partly through direct chemical reactions, donating electrons to stabilize these reactive molecules, and partly by binding to metal ions that would otherwise catalyze further oxidative damage, activating your body's own antioxidant defense systems. This is a piece that often gets skipped in oversimplified explanations. Rather than just acting as antioxidants themselves, polyphenols also appear to activate a cellular signaling pathway called KEAP1-NRF2, which switches on your body's own internal antioxidant enzyme production. In other words, part of what polyphenols may do isn't neutralizing damage directly, it's prompting your cells to ramp up their own built-in defense systems. Anti-inflammatory signaling. Polyphenols have been shown in research to interact with inflammatory signaling pathways, including one called NF-κB, which plays a central role in regulating the body's inflammatory response. This is part of why polyphenol-rich diets are often studied alongside markers of chronic, low-grade inflammation, the kind linked to cardiovascular disease and other age-related conditions, as distinct from the acute inflammation your body needs for healing an injury or fighting an infection. Supporting mitochondrial function. Some research points to polyphenols playing a role in supporting mitochondria, the structures inside your cells responsible for producing energy, and helping maintain what researchers call mitochondrial quality control, the processes that keep these energy-producing structures functioning properly over time. Specific compound examples. Resveratrol, probably the most famous individual polyphenol thanks to its association with red wine, has been studied for its interaction with a cellular pathway involving proteins called sirtuins, which are involved in cellular stress response and have drawn significant research interest in aging science. Quercetin, found in onions, apples, and many other foods, has been studied extensively for its antioxidant properties and its interactions with various cellular processes. The part marketing leaves out bioavailability. This is the single most important thing to understand if you want to actually evaluate polyphenol claims critically, and it's almost never mentioned in supplement advertising. Bioavailability refers to how much of a compound you actually absorb and use after you eat or drink it, as opposed to how much simply passes through your digestive system unused. And for polyphenols, bioavailability is a genuinely significant limiting factor. Research consistently identifies bioavailability as one of the primary factors determining whether a polyphenol's theoretical benefits translate into an actual effect inside your body, and it's affected by a long list of variables: the specific chemical structure of the compound, how it's metabolized by digestive enzymes and gut bacteria, how it interacts with other things you're eating at the same time, and how quickly it's broken down and excreted. Resveratrol is a clear example of this problem. Despite being one of the most studied and most hyped polyphenols, research has repeatedly found that its bioavailability is poor due to rapid metabolism and low solubility in water, meaning a meaningful portion of what you consume may never actually reach the tissues where it could theoretically have an effect. This is exactly why so much current research effort is going into finding ways to improve polyphenol delivery and absorption, rather than simply proving they work once absorbed. That distinction matters. A compound demonstrating impressive effects in a lab dish, where researchers can control the exact concentration reaching cells directly, doesn't automatically mean the same effect happens after you eat the food or take the supplement and your digestive system processes it. Why so much of the strongest evidence comes from lab and animal studies, not humans? A large share of the specific mechanistic claims about polyphenols, the NRF2 activation, the NF-κB modulation, the mitochondrial effects, come from cell culture experiments and animal studies, where researchers can directly control dosing and measure precise cellular changes. This research is valuable and forms the foundation for understanding how these compounds could work, but it's a different category of evidence from a human clinical trial demonstrating that eating more polyphenol-rich food actually changes a real health outcome, like reduced cardiovascular events or improved cognitive scores, over a period of years. Reviews of this research area consistently and honestly note that more clinical evidence, specifically in humans, is needed to confirm whether the mechanisms observed at the cellular level reliably translate into meaningful health outcomes at typical dietary intake levels. This is a genuinely responsible thing for researchers to say, and it's the exact nuance that tends to disappear by the time a claim reaches a supplement bottle or a social media post. So does eating polyphenol-rich food actually matter? Given all these caveats, it would be easy to swing too far the other direction and conclude polyphenols don't matter at all. That's not quite right either. Large observational studies looking at overall dietary patterns rich in fruits, vegetables, tea, coffee, and whole grains, all naturally high in polyphenols, have consistently found these patterns associated with better cardiovascular outcomes and lower rates of several chronic diseases. The honest, nuanced position is this. Polyphenol-rich whole foods are consistently associated with better health outcomes in large population studies, and there are well-documented, plausible biological mechanisms explaining how they could contribute to that. What's much less certain is whether isolating a single polyphenol compound into a concentrated pill or powder, separate from the whole food it naturally comes from, reproduces the same benefit given the real bioavailability challenges involved. This distinction between eating polyphenol-rich foods as part of a normal diet versus taking a concentrated polyphenol supplement expecting the same or greater effect is exactly where a lot of marketing claims stretch beyond what the science actually supports. What this means practically, based on where the evidence actually stands, a reasonable approach looks like this. Eating a genuinely varied diet that includes fruits, vegetables, tea or coffee, whole grains, and foods like berries and nuts gives you a broad mix of different polyphenol compounds, working through multiple mechanisms, alongside fiber, vitamins, and other nutrients that isolated supplements don't provide. This is a lower risk, well-supported approach compared to relying on a single concentrated polyphenol supplement and expecting a dramatic, isolated effect. If you're considering a polyphenol supplement specifically, it's worth knowing that the evidence for concentrated, isolated compounds reproducing the same benefits seen in whole food dietary patterns is considerably less established than the marketing around these products usually suggests, largely because of the bioavailability challenges described earlier. Polyphenols are a real, well-studied category of plant compounds with plausible, well-documented mechanisms involving antioxidant activity, your body's own internal defense systems, anti-inflammatory signaling, and cellular energy production. The research behind these mechanisms is genuine and interesting. But two things routinely get lost between the lab and the marketing. Bioavailability limits how much of what you consume your body actually uses, and a meaningful portion of the most specific mechanistic claims come from cell and animal studies rather than confirmed human clinical outcomes. The most well-supported takeaway isn't take this specific polyphenol supplement and reverse aging, it's that eating a genuinely varied plant-rich diet, the kind that naturally delivers a broad mix of these compounds alongside everything else whole food provides, remains one of the better supported dietary habits for long-term health.